Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Ask Me Anything webinar. I'm Joanna Gao, and I'm the AI editor at the Pulitzer Center, where I oversee the AI Accountability Network. We also have one of our current AI fellows joining us from Brazil, Sofia Schurig. So just one note, this is a re-recording of the first part of a live webinar. We're re-recording this part due to an audio issue that you'll hear later in this video. I also want to mention that our call for proposals for this year for the fellowship is open until August 11th at 11:59 p.m. on the East Coast of the US. You can find the application at the QR code on your screen. So today we will try to demystify the application process. So we want to clarify any questions you might have about the fellowship, how to shape your application, what the timing looks like, the financial aspects of what we support, and what to expect from the fellowship experience. So one of our current AI Accountability Fellows from Brazil, Sofia Schurig, is going to be joining us later to share tips on finding the story, how she prepared a fellowship application, and then we will also try to get as many questions answered from the audience as possible at the end. So most of you have probably already seen this on our website, what our goals of the fellowship are, what support we offer if your project is selected. So some of the basics, the fellowship is a 10-month part-time fellowship. It's also a remote fellowship so that you can apply and work from anywhere in the world and be part of this cohort. We are aiming to start the 10 months sometime in mid to late September this year, and it will run through July of next year, 2026. And the fellowship is focused on AI accountability. So we really want to be looking at the people, the governments, the companies that are really behind the AI supply chain. So we're looking at the data that goes into AI models, the infrastructure that needs to be set up to support AI, the models themselves, and we also want to look at the applications of AI in all of your communities. The fellowship is open to staff or freelance journalists. So we usually have a pretty good mix within our cohort. And we are also looking for people who are generous with sharing their knowledge as they're learning, people who are really curious, and people who can work collaboratively. People will generally be working on their own projects during the fellowship, but we do expect that there will be a lot of knowledge sharing during the fellowship, and that community is really important. The fellowship provides up to $20,000 for a reporting project. So budgets can cover records requests, they can cover travel expenses, data analyses, if you need to hire a consultant or a photographer or an illustrator. And if you're a freelancer, it can also cover up to 1/3 of your total budget as well for a stipend. During the fellowship, you will get opportunities for mentorship depending on what your story is about. We will have monthly trainings. We have a really wonderful data and research team that will help with data analysis, help teach you how to follow the money, do lots of research about companies that you're looking into. You also get to be part of a really wonderful community of other journalists. So the cohort that you're in, but we also have connections to all of our former fellows. And we also look for our fellows to get involved in our engagement activities following the fellowship. So at the Pulitzer Center, we have a really robust education and engagement team. So after the fellowship projects are published, it doesn't necessarily have to end there. Sometimes you can be invited to get involved and speak about your projects at schools or other places to really extend the reach of your project. For those who become fellows, you would be required to attend a monthly meeting. So we try to keep it around 90 minutes to 2 hours every month. Because it is a part-time fellowship, we try to be really careful about how much time we ask for. And then while you can publish in whatever language you want during the fellowship meetings will be held in English. So similarly to this Ask Me Anything session, we do try to cater to fellows from all over the world. So we use English for our meetings. Our fellows are also really strongly encouraged to attend our training sessions, which also happen about monthly. So we will have trainings all the way from how to do visualizations to hearing from former fellows about how they did their projects, to mental health trainings, to how to structure your investigation trainings. So it really depends on what the cohort needs every year. And then after publication, we do ask people to write up a reporting methodology and present their stories to our AI community. What we're doing in this field building time is really we want to give people resources and we want to be able to spread knowledge. So if you're trying a new methodology, it would be really great for you to write it out so other people can learn from your work as well. The community is really one of the best parts of the fellowship. So this past year, our fellows have been able to get together in person. So we took all of our fellows to the ZEG Storytelling Festival in Tbilisi, Georgia, just really recently. And during that time, they were able to spend time talking about their projects with each other and really workshop them and problem solve on them. But also, they got to just spend time together and really build rapport. And what's really great after that is not only did they get to share their work with other people, but when they got together, they did start to plan out a couple investigations that they'll be working on together after the fellowship too. So we're really hoping that that's something that can continue in the future. So a few things that you might want to have in mind as you're preparing to apply. One of the things is pre-reporting. You don't need to have everything worked out about your project before you apply, but we want to know that you've done enough pre-reporting to understand how feasible your project is. We want to know that you've probably done maybe a couple of interviews, maybe just to get a sense of like where you should be going to get information. If you're relying on documents, you have a good sense of who you need to be asking for documents for. If you need additional support for that, like you have a sense of where you might go for that. You don't need to have all the information there, but we want to make sure that the project that you're proposing is doable and doable within the 10-month period. The second thing is really that reporting plan. I think Sofia will talk about this a little bit more later, but we want to have an understanding that you have really thought through what some of the methodologies you're using. We want you to be open to trying new things during the fellowship as well, but we want you to at least have a couple of plans and maybe even a backup plan if your initial plan doesn't work. The third thing is it's really important to have support from an outlet. This is a 10-month fellowship, so it sounds like it's a lot of time, but it actually goes by really quickly. And because these projects sometimes have a lot of moving parts, we want to make sure that you have an outlet that's really supporting you through the process of working on it, but also through to publication. So that's something that's really important because it adds a lot of stress during your fellowship if that support isn't solid. And then the last thing is really to get the 3 professional references. We just want to make sure that there are people who can speak to some of your previous work and what you're like in working in groups. So some of you might be here today because you might have a specific question to ask or because you're not even necessarily sure you want to apply yet. And sometimes we can understand it can feel really daunting, especially if you don't have any experience in covering artificial intelligence or you're really new to tech reporting. And I'm here to tell you it feels really natural to feel that way. Even though we're recruiting our 4th cohort now, it's still a relatively new field and you're definitely not alone in feeling daunted. So to try to help with just kind of demystifying this field, we have a couple of free AI accountability training sessions that we're going to be running before the deadline of August 11th. So one of them is on Monday. So this is on July 21st. It's going to be run in English with Bahasa Indonesia translation. And then we also are running one on July 31st, which is going to be in Mandarin only. We are also running one really close to the deadline. It's actually going to be August 9th. It's going to be in person at NABJ. So if you're going to be at NABJ in the US, that will be running in English. And then we do have a 4th one, which is specifically for editors. So when you're having conversations with editors, if they're feeling maybe not completely confident in being able to help support a project that you're proposing, this is a free training for editors so that they can better support you. So it might be one that you might want to suggest to people that you're speaking with. The application for that is due July 31st. So that's one to also take a look at. The actual training will be August 26th. So in our Spotlight Series trainings, this is just going to be a bit of a sneak peek for it if you haven't been to one. We talk about different ways of approaching AI stories. So this is a framework that was created by Karen Howe, who was our lead curriculum designer for the Spotlight Series. And the framework that she's put together is data plus compute will give you AI models, and then it also gives you a way of looking at AI applications. So when we're looking at data, we're looking at the data that backs AI models. It's basically like the knowledge that AI models know. When we're looking at compute, we're looking at the infrastructure that has to be put up to be able to support all of that data and analysis to be able to create models. The AI models are about the models themselves, and applications are about how those AI models are actually applied in real world products and in communities. So I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of examples. These are a couple of examples of stories about the labor behind AI models and how training data is created. These are a few stories looking at the environmental impact of some of the infrastructure created for AI. Here's a couple of stories looking at the AI models themselves, looking at fairness, looking at how they work, looking at bias. And then here's a couple of stories looking at how AI is actually applied in different settings. So if you just look at those 8 stories, there's way more if you want to take a look at them at the website on the screen. So that's https://pulitzercenter.org/AI. If you want to see all of those stories, you can see that there's really a wide range of topics and formats and languages and approaches that our previous AI fellows and grantees have used. So we support not just written investigations, we also have supported documentaries and podcasts. So there's really no one fixed approach in covering this issue. So what we really are looking for is just projects that aim to explain the uses and impacts of AI on communities around the world. And that doesn't mean that we're looking just for like doom and gloom stories. Like we are really looking for nuanced stories that are really grounded in the experiences of the communities that you're in. So I will say again, like I can't say this enough, this is a really new field still of reporting. And what we really want to do in this fellowship is give you the space and also give you the support to try new reporting methods. We don't expect you to be experts or have done award-winning or blockbuster investigations on AI. Actually, most of our fellows in the past hadn't covered AI before starting the fellowship. But one of the things that they did have coming in, which is something that we do look for the fellowship, is really a track record of in-depth journalism and really using kind of human-centric approaches. Sometimes people look at tech reporting and they think it's really technical and there's like a lot of words that don't feel really applicable to people when they're reading. So we're really looking for people who can make some of this material really accessible for their communities. And the other thing we're also looking for is just people who are willing to learn and grow with a group of peers in that community that we're trying to build. So again, if you want to look at more of these stories, go to the website pulitzercenter.org/AI, and you can get maybe some inspiration there from some of the work we've supported in the past. If you're also looking for more inspiration, we also do have our fellows and grantees writing up methodologies of how they did their reporting. So you can also maybe find some inspiration for approaching your investigation there as well. So the website for that is pulitzercenter.org/AI-reporting-resources. And then lastly, from my side, I just want to highlight some of the lessons that we've learned from the first few years of the fellowship. The first is really that AI reporting is for every beat. It's not just a tech reporting thing. You can really report on AI from almost anything that you're currently reporting on. The second thing is to really highlight human voices. As I said, the human-centered approach really allows people to connect with your stories and it makes the impacts more understandable and more accessible. So that's something that we find really important. The third thing is that this interdisciplinary work in collaboration is really key, especially for a new field. It's really important to be able to work with different people with different backgrounds. So that's something that we look for, not just in the reporting side, but also in how you might want to tell your story in the end. The fourth thing is that if you are relying on records requests, they can take a long time. So if that is a key part of your reporting plan, do try to file those records requests as soon as possible. And that kind of leads on to the next step, which is to really have a plan B. Have an idea of what you might do if those records requests don't go through, or what might happen if you aren't able to get the interview that is really key and crucial to your story. So always have a couple of ideas of how you might be able to deal with something not going the way that you planned. And then also I would say it's really important to have the support of your editor and the outlet throughout the process. So I would continue having that communication. It really makes a difference when you've got a supportive editor, someone who will help you through your reporting process, but also help you with the publication of your pieces. And then the last one is 10 months is just not very long. I've said this a few times already. Do really think about what's feasible in your reporting plan. It's also really important to think about that in the context of what else you have going on. This is a part-time fellowship, so most of our fellows will have other work that they're doing as well. So really do think about how feasible your plan is within the 10 months. So that's enough for me. So we're at the highlight of today's event from the live webinar. So I will cut you over to that. I guess for people who haven't read your story yet, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what your project was about and how and where you found your story?
Yes, so the title is pretty explanatory. The project is focused on the use of generative AI to create child sexual abuse material. Some people may know this as child pornography. And I was drawn to this investigation first because I research and report on this subject in Brazil for more than 2 or 3 years. And because Brazil has one of the world's largest and most active cybercrime communities, people that cover technology may know about that. And disturbingly, accessing this type of content is really easy online. You can just go to your social media feed and step on some content like this. And because at Nucleo, the outlet that I work on, we were seeing month by month that this content wasn't being moderated, that AI systems were getting better, the content was getting better, more realistic. So we decided to construct this project and apply to the fellowship. And yeah, I think that.
I feel like in the past we've had a lot of questions about like how much pre-reporting to do, and so obviously you had a little bit of a background for this story, but I guess how did you decide you had enough for the application, and like when you were putting your reporting plan together, what was your thinking behind that?
Yeah, so I had some pre-reporting, but not a 10-month project because I work on small stories. So to think about a fellowship project, you need to think a lot of stories, deep investigations, deep research, deep interviews. So I knew that I had enough when the project felt doable to me, when I felt that I could do any of the steps with the fellowship or if I wanted to do on my own. So that meant having a clear structured plan with defined steps, timelines, reporting methods. I'm going to talk about that, that I could actually execute. And not only myself, but other reporters or other researchers. So I worked a lot on the fellowship. There was a time that I was like rewriting all the text, but I thought, okay, that's enough. I can do this. Someone can replicate that, and I'm going to apply.
Cool. Were there any things that you were thinking about for like making your application stand out when you were working on it?
I think highlighting on my application, we also need to do a statement of purpose. So I try to explain the problem and the role that AI has. It's sexual crimes against children in Brazil, in the global South, in South America, are a frequent problem, but AI has worsened that over the past years. So I tried to explain that and how I could make this story interesting because it's a sad subject, it's a sad story. So to make the application stronger as possible, Joanna, I think I can share some of the steps that I had on my application. I think maybe I saw some of the questions in the QA, so I think that may help. So the core proposal of my application was to identify, map, and analyze how free generative AI tools are being used to create child pornography. So I framed this around some guiding questions like which AI models are being used, what safeguards do or don't exist within these tools. This helped me to construct what the project was going to be about and what I could and couldn't do. So then I broke the proposal into 5 steps that I think can help some of the people that are going to apply. So the first was the identification of tools. So I laid out the process for discovering the AI platforms, citing some of my pre-reporting and some data from Brazil. Assessment and testing. So I plan to test the tools using pre-reporting experience and talked with researchers, specialists on the area here in Brazil. The third was hypothesis testing. So we had this hypothesis that AI-generated child pornography was being sold in social media. We saw this on reports. Authorities around the world were talking about this, but we hadn't seen a major investigation about how this market works. So we try to focus on investigating where was being sold, with social media platforms and in dark web forums. The fourth step was to do a global south impact analysis. So I concluded a step to investigate how this crime is affecting Brazilian population, Brazilian children, Brazilian women. And the fifth step was stakeholder engagement. So we talked to regulators. This was actually the hardest, the hard part, to talk with big tech companies and PR firms to get the other side, to see what they are doing, because sometimes they don't like to talk with the reporters in Brazil. And I think this can show, I can share if anyone wants to talk with me about the reporting, about the project, I can share more in depth, step by step of what I did.
Cool. And I guess like for people who haven't read all of your stories yet, like what were some of like the kind of like what are maybe some of the findings that you had and maybe some of the impacts that they've had so far?
Yeah, so we did a lot of stuff. We published a lot of stories because I couldn't take the small newsroom thing out of me. So I wanted to do small stories to construct a big project. So most critically, we found that AI companies and big tech companies don't know what to do to moderate and prevent the creation of AI child pornography. Is a really complicated thing because they need to have safe data training in place. So they need to pay human moderators and data trainers. They need to cooperate with government authorities, police authorities. But we did had a lot of impactful reporting, in my opinion. We found a lot of, we mapped the infrastructure, not the infrastructure, but the chain of production of this content, the commercialization of this content. Our hypothesis of AI content being sold on social media and dark web forums was proven right. We found, we did a story about 14 Instagram profiles that sold AI system material. The Brazilian Consumer Agency Protection actually opened our investigation against Meta because of our reporting. We also did a story about dark web forums creating AI models to produce this type of criminal content, and Brazilian authorities also did some follow-up because of this reporting. Our stories have been cited on the AI Commission in the House of Representatives, Câmara dos Deputados here in Brazil. Actually, on Monday, I'm going to go to the House of Representatives to talk about the Pulitzer stories on the AI Commission that is drafting the AI regulation here in Brazil. So we did a lot, and I'm really happy. We have some, I think the Pulitzer page has the impact side, so you guys can also read. And I think that's a motivation aspect for the application.
Yeah, I mean, the constant impact that's been coming in from this story has been really awesome to see. So I guess talk a little bit about what people can expect from the fellowship from your own experience.
For me, the great thing was to be able to talk with people outside Brazil. So I saw a lot of the questions about experience and graduating. So I'm undergrad here in Brazil. I'm still finishing my studies on communications and culture. And I thought that it couldn't be possible to participate on a program like this. I thought you needed to work 20 years and have 5 PhDs to work on this. But I think the great thing was to talk to people, to train my English. You guys can see I have some difficulty speaking, but to train my writing, to watch the amazing trainings, the amazing lectures. The AI Spotlight series is really great. So I learned a lot, not only about AI and journalism, but a lot. So when we talked to the other fellows, I learned a lot about their cultures, their countries, their regulations, how their systems, their justice systems work. And I think that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life and my career. So
Yeah, I think what's kind of cool about the fellowship and also kind of watching like all of your interactions, like as a cohort, also, it's like AI is like such a global thing now. Like, software is like bought and sold in so many different places. Like the supply chain like goes through so many countries. And so it has been really cool to get to see like some of the conversations like you've been able to have with some of our other fellows about something that they're working on and vice versa. So I know that a lot of the other fellows have really benefited from you being in the cohort as well. I know like when we're putting together cohorts, like we are really thinking about how people can learn from each other. So like that real like diversity of experience is really important. I guess like before we go to the Q and A's, I guess is there any advice that you'd give people who are applying or thinking about applying?
Yeah, so I think the best thing is first to be organized. So you need to have a budget for your fellowship. Do the step by step, really lay out what you're thinking, the importance, and also don't wait till you feel ready. Be organized and apply when your project is doable. So not only you can do, but another reporter, another researcher could do this project. Be clear about what you want to report, so don't be don't do a general reporting thing. Show why it matters, how you will approach it, how your background uh, will influence the reporting. I don't think you don't need to know everything up front. I didn't know, I am a tech reporter and a tech researcher, but I didn't know a lot about the AI infrastructure, how I know now because of the trainings and because of the lectures. So you need to know the basics, but also I think if you show that you're interested in learning and you can learn, you can study, you can participate, that's really important too.
Cool, awesome. Well, maybe we can go to some Q and A questions, I think. Let's see. The first one is from somebody who told me that my screen wasn't working. So yeah, thank you. I should have looked at that earlier. Apologies on my part for that. Let's see, we've got a question. What kind of story ideas do you look for in this fellowship, and what tips do you have to make your story pitch appealing? Um, so I would say that like we're pretty open to lots of different topics. As I was saying before, like AI like intersects with so many different beats now. So I don't think there's any like particular like you can pretty much do an AI story almost in any area. I would say in terms of tips, I would say like as Sophia said, like do some pre-reporting to know that you're able to like that your actual reporting plan is doable. So I think like the feasibility of it is really important. For example, if you're doing an investigation that relies really heavily on documents, like have a good sense of like how likely you are to get those documents, what the timeline would look like, and like who specifically you would need to be requesting these documents from and what support you would need. And I think the other thing that Sophia said before earlier is also really relevant. It's just like the specificity of what you're doing. I think a lot of the pitches that come through that are the ones that aren't quite as strong are usually the ones where they say, oh, I want to look in like the intersection of like AI and education, but like more generally, where they're not talking about, a specific technology, or they're not talking about like a specific use case. Or so I think like the more specific you can get, the better. Sophia, are there any other tips or things that you can highlight?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to be really clear about what you want to report on. No, not only for the application team, but for yourself, because you can just propose something that in the end won't be able to do. So it's great to be really clear.
Yeah, totally. And I think like again, like thinking about the 10 months and like what else you also have to work on during those 10 months is really important. Like I think you want to make sure that like what you're proposing is actually realistic and doable. And also like you can also try to find a team for yourself. Actually, maybe there's a question, Sophia, that maybe you can answer because Sophia, you've got a team, you actually like manage a team basically to do this project. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how that came together.
Yes, so for the budget on my project, I decided to hire 4 people, two researchers and two journalists. Uh, we also use part for, other sides of the project, but the help was really great. Like I really needed we divided, we had a journalist specialist on cybercrime, another one is specialist on regulation and politics in Brazil. One researcher is there was a specialist on cybercrime too, because our project was focused on that. But the other researcher was a STEM researcher, so he's a developer, and he helped us to understand and to trace some of the AI models that we worked on. So it's really great to have the help with other people, and people that you know, that you can manage, that you know can manage the tasks, the meetings. So it's really great.
Yeah, I think we've had some questions before about, how big your team can be. And with Sophia, like you basically are managing this team of people that you hired, right? So I guess it has to be like a number of people and people that you feel like you can actually work with for that time.
Yeah, because otherwise your project will be managing people. So you need to work with people that you trust the work, that you know you can still focus on the project, and that are interested on the story. Because things will happen. Sometimes you won't finish the deadlines, so you need to have a team that is working to finish the project with the better outcome as possible.
Yeah. Okay. A question from Sophia. If you underestimate costs involved in a project, can you apply for further resources during the fellowship? So we generally try to keep the amount that we give for the fellowship fixed from the beginning. So I would say like definitely try to do as much research as you can upfront to understand what costs like everything will be. Yeah, so generally I would do everything you can to try not to underestimate costs. And if you need to add a little bit of padding, I don't go crazy with the padding, but add a little bit just for contingencies. So if you aren't quite sure like exactly how many documents you're going to need, like don't just like take like a certain number that you think is exactly what you need and then multiply by how much it would cost. Give it like a little bit of wiggle room, just for contingencies. Other questions. Does a statement of purpose have to be about our proposal or us, our journey, or how the fellowship fits in? So the statement of purpose for us is really for us to understand like what you're interested in. So I think there is a question in the application, which is like more of the proposal, and then one which is a like why are you interested in this fellowship in particular, and what are the ways that you feel like you might be able to contribute, and in what ways would you like to be able to learn from the group. So I would say like especially like the kind of personal statement bit, I would focus a little bit more about how this fellowship fits in with your career, how you see it adding to what you're hoping to do, and then also focusing a little bit about just like how you will relate to the rest of the cohort as well. Okay, just take that one. Would it be okay to apply with a project that is already supported by another fellowship? I think this one would probably depend. So I think this is maybe one of the cases where if you've got a question, you can email us at reacheditorial@pulitzercenter.org. I will try to find an email address somewhere and post it in the chat. So I will say like generally we're fine like also having if you have a project that's being funded by multiple sources, but it just has to be like a funder that we're also able to work with. So we would like our fellowship to be kind of like the main source of your funding, but if you have funding from other places as well, that should be okay. This is also only a part-time fellowship, so we do have fellows who are working on multiple projects at the same time that are being funded by multiple different groups. We have a fellow right now who's doing 2 different fellowships. So I think for the most part, the answer should be yes, but if you've got a specific question, do feel free to email us at reacheditorial@pulitzercenter.org. Question, did I miss anything? Let's see. So former journalist from India currently studying in the US. Can I still apply as a freelance journalist? Yes, this is a remote fellowship, so you can apply from anywhere, and that will be fine. Is it possible to work on a topic directly with researchers? If the question is, I think if the question is, if you're a journalist and you're working on your reporting with researchers, I think if that's the question, then the answer is yes. So I think, like as Sophia mentioned, I don't know if is there anything else we want to add about how you worked with researchers?
Yeah, I think the thing to work with researchers that you need to take the academic and scientific side and transform into journalism. But again, if is someone that you trust the work, you can talk, you can manage, that should be fine.
Yeah, yeah. Concerning the financial aspects of proposal, should we consider a project budget within the fellowship application? Yes. When you're doing the application, there should be like a thing where you can upload like a budget. So the more detailed you can get in there, the better. So if you're able to break down like each of the kind of items of your budget, that would be great. And then especially for things that like might be like maybe specific to your project, if you can add like a little bit of a justification for why you need each item, that would also be really helpful. Here's a question. Is a fellow expected to secure a journalistic visa to a country they would be visiting for a report? Does fellowship provide some type of support, like a journalistic ID or something in that direction? So I would say that generally you would be responsible for securing your own visas for your reporting, but we would also really encourage people that if you're doing reporting in other countries to really find a partner to work with. So most of our fellows who are doing reporting in other country have found someone to collaborate with for their project. And that's something that we would really encourage, not just for our fellowship program, but for our grant program as well, just because people on the ground are probably are probably best at understanding like just like what the actual feeling is on the ground. So that's something that we would really recommend is instead of you necessarily having to fly somewhere yourself to do the reporting is to find a partner in that country or in that community to help you out with your story. And that's something that like Sophia, for example, for her project, she hired a journalist to work with her. That's something that you could do as a fellow as well. So you could budget in to hire someone to work with in a different country. Another question, I've seen that most of your fellows are mid-career journalists, are more senior profiles desired. I would say that within our cohort, we're really looking for a good mix. Like we're looking for people who can really learn from each other and also teach others as well. So if you are someone who is more senior, but are still really open to like learning and being curious, as Sophia said, then that's definitely something we're really excited about. So we are really looking for a diverse background, and that also goes for seniority as well. Can someone with research background be considered as an eligible candidate? So we do take people from any kind of background. I think the only thing I would say is that we are looking for people who have journalism experience. So, but you don't have to have gone to journalism school. So Sophia didn't go to journalism school. I didn't go to journalism school. A lot of like our other fellows didn't go to journalism school. So you don't necessarily have to have had traditional kind of like formal instruction in journalism, but we are looking for people who've had a record of working in journalism before. And in particular, we are looking for in-depth reporting as well. So having a research background certainly is not detrimental, but we are just looking for journalism expertise. I'm missing other things. I'm a journalist who's taking my graduate studies in Europe. Am I allowed to apply? Yes, you can be based anywhere. We are looking for a diverse group of backgrounds. So I think that should be fine. Will Pulitzer be publishing the story, or do I need to have a newsroom to back me up to publish a story? So that's a really good question. So it's really important that you have an outlet to support you. We will be co-publishing stories on our website for the most part, but we are looking for an outlet that will be able to publish the stories. One of the things that we are really keen on is for you to have a really good understanding of who your audience is. So if you're a freelancer looking for an outlet, it's really important to think about who the intended audience is and how you might best reach them. If you work for if you're a staffer for an organization, you also want to make sure that your editors will give you enough time and also enough support to get your stories published. So that is something that's really important. This question, can you define transparency and governance reporting in relation to AI more precisely? Can these projects focus on the physical infrastructure of AI, or does the focus need to be on the models themselves? Yes, apologies, this is probably the bit of the presentation I was not showing my screen for. So in our Spotlight Series training, if you haven't done one before, I would really recommend maybe trying to sign up for the one on Monday. So that one will be, I think there will be a link somewhere in the chat for that. So on Monday, if you're able to sign up for that one, we normally go through, there's a framework for AI reporting that was put together by Karen Howe, who was our lead Spotlight Series curriculum designer. And the way that she kind of sees AI accountability as a field is really looking at the data that goes behind models, the infrastructure that's used to support them, and those things together really build up the models and how they're applied. And so we're looking for stories in any of those buckets. So for sure, we are definitely interested in projects that focus on that physical infrastructure of AI. You've probably seen some stories about data centers, so that's definitely something we're interested in. But also, if people are interested in looking in different critical minerals that are needed for that infrastructure as well, those are things that we're interested in. This question, what if someone has published many papers but not directly on AI? That's totally fine. I think I said earlier, like lots of our fellows hadn't published on AI before. Some of them hadn't even published on tech before. I think in the Spotlight series, one of the things that we try to mention to people is that a lot of the kinds of questions that you would be asking about when it comes to AI and companies and people, it's really like it's really just talking about people and power. So those are the same kinds of questions you'd be asking for other things. So you certainly don't need to have published directly on AI before. Sofia, you'd had some experience like on AI before, but probably not quite to this depth before. Is that right? Oh, I think I'm not hearing you. Are other people?
It's not, yeah, I think.
Oh, that sounds a little better, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so I had more experience working on reporting on big tech and social media, but not AI. I knew about the AI companies and the CEOs, the structure, the layoffs, but not necessarily the in-depth report.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then like that's the case for like most of our fellows this year as well. Are recommendation letters from our professional references required, or can we just provide their contact details? I want to say that we definitely need at least the details. I think you don't necessarily need to have a letter. If you have a letter, that might be useful, but like usually if you're a finals candidate, we will be getting in touch with all three of them anyway. So like it might be able to be helpful if they're able to talk about some aspect of your application that might not have been explained by you in another part of your application. When you say track record, do you mean like significant amount published articles or awarded? Could you please clarify this? That's a really good question. Track records is actually kind of not a very specific word. So I would say like for a tracker, we are looking for like I guess what we want to know is that you have the ability to do in-depth stories. Like this is really an area, a field that really needs people to dig deep. So I think that we just want to understand that you've been able to do that before and that you've been able to use different reporting methods to do this before. So I would say like you don't need to have, you don't need to have like an X number of articles. You don't need to have won awards. They don't have to be in like big media houses. We are looking for like your ability to dig deep and also write in an accessible way. So I think those are maybe the two things that I would focus on. And I would also say like being like knowing who your audience is. So any of the clips that you might have that might show those three things would really go a long way. What kind of professional references are you looking for? I think we're looking for people who can talk about like your experience, but also what it's like to work with you. So I would say like if you're able to get references about from people who can answer those questions. We are trying to build, as I've said before, like a cohort of people who can work together and people who can learn and who are curious. So people who can kind of talk about their experience with you in those ways would be really helpful. Sofia, is there anything like what did you do for your professional references and how did you think about them?
I used Tatiana. She was a fellow the past year, and I worked with her on her project, and two of my editors at Nuclear. So
yeah, so I guess it's someone that was going to continue supporting you for this fellowship and then had worked with you before, and then just someone you had also worked with on a previous project. So could probably talk about your ability to like work as a team and things of that sort. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to quickly scroll up just to make sure I haven't missed any other upvoted ones. If there's ones that you want us to, we've got about 9 minutes left, so we're going to just keep going through. If there's anything you want us to upvote, like please let us know, and I will try to make sure we're getting the most important ones. As we work to get support from an outlet in advance of the application, I'd like to confirm that freelance fellows are able to take payments from outlets. Yes, so the payments can go to either the fellow themselves or the outlet. So in a lot of cases, like for staffers, it will go directly to the outlet. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Like sometimes even staffers will get payments directly to themselves. Sometimes it's easier for the outlet to do like budgeting like for themselves if that happens that way. It just kind of depends. And then freelance fellows, they can take the payment themselves, or it can go to the outlet. Though I think for most of the freelancers, they mostly take the payments themselves. But that's something that we can do it either way, depending on what the preference is. How would you define the success of an AI fellowship project? That's a good question. I think there's like a lot of different ways we think about this. So I think part of it is how the AI fellow is able to enrich the cohort. So I think like that's definitely one way that we look at success. Was the fellow able to like learn from the cohort? Was the fellow able to also like teach other people in the cohort things as well? I always say that Sofia has done a really great job this year because she's both been able to make other people like really curious about certain things. So like she'll, for example, like if she's reading something interesting, she'll share about it. But also if other people are saying something about, that they've learned, like she'll also reply to it and like ask other questions. So like that's something that that definitely really makes the fellowship cohort richer when that happens. So that's something that I think is really important. And then I think the other end of it is also something that Sofia was saying earlier, which is that we also are really interested in the impact of the community that you were trying to reach. And so the fact that Sofia is getting to speak with people who are lawmakers and making choices in Brazil about how AI is going to be regulated, like I think that obviously is also a big success. So, but I think in terms of like how we see impact, it will look different for every project. It will be different for every single topic. So, there are certain topics that happen to, have a lot of, that might take the interest of regulators at the moment, but there's other topics that are equally important and maybe the impacts are more individual or maybe in specific communities. And so, yeah, so we try to take as a broad kind of look at what impact might look like. Sofia, do you have any answer to this one? Of like, what did you think would be success for you?
I think the impact when working in the global south in technology is good to make people that, for example, regulators, authorities that have the power to regulate and solve this problem on our countries. When they pay attention, maybe sometimes it's an email, they can't speak publicly about it, but they to tell you that they know that they are reading, they thank you for your reporting. For me, that's the important thing, more than on other outlets reporting the story or social media posts. So for me, that's the more important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like we really try to take like a broad look at what impact looks like because it will look different on different levels and in different topics. There's a couple of questions about backgrounds, but I think we've answered a few of these. There's a question about, are there a couple of questions about financing? So one question about with the 20K budget, can it be used for stipends? So we ask for that stipends for freelancers are at most 1/3 of the total budget. So, but otherwise, yes, it can be used as a stipend for freelancers. And then also how our finances typically, we've answered that one already. Funding can go either to the fellow or to the outlet, but usually for freelancers, it goes directly to the fellow. Have any previous fellows who were staffers at one outlet done their project and published them with a different outlet more suitable for content? We've definitely had that before. Sometimes people will also co-publish, but as long as like you've got the support of your outlet to do that, that is totally fine. I know like Sofia's had some conversations with other outlets as well for her project. We've done that before with other fellows as well. Are there other questions? Let's see, I'm just scrolling through. There's a question about, are there any particular kinds of stories or any particular areas that we're not interested in? I'm hesitating to answer that one because I don't think there's any answer that would definitely be true in all cases. So I think that you can find a compelling story in almost all areas. So I would say, as long as you kind of keep an accountability focus, so kind of being able to think specifically about a person or a company or a government, I would say like that's probably the more important bit rather than like a specific area that we're not interested in. And also, like, I think being the Pulitzer Center, like, we want to be looking at underreported stories. So if you feel like you've read a lot about something somewhere, then I would say maybe see if there's a different angle that you could take in your story, or maybe a different perspective that you can take in your story. That's probably more important than like there being specific areas that we're not interested in. I think I actually answered this one. I forgot to say that was done. I think I've answered the AI infrastructure data center one. Question about priority given to projects that explore the impact of AI in the global south. We're definitely very interested in AI in the global south. So I think, as I was saying before, like, we're really interested in stories that are underreported. So we definitely are looking specifically for stories that we haven't seen, which a lot of them are about the impact of AI in the global south, and particularly in Francophone Africa. So for certain, if you have stories that are in that area, we're very interested. So definitely do apply. Yeah, I think just a couple of more specific questions. I answered that one already. I think we might be almost done. Is there anything else that, Sophia, that you see that I haven't answered?
No, I think you have covered everything.
Okay, cool. Maybe any like last minute tips or anything, Sophia, for everyone before we maybe close up for the hour?
Well, I think I would like to just repeat again. Do a proposal that is doable. Don't wait too long. Don't apply last minute. And everything will be okay. Don't worry. You can do this. Just be organized and do an idea that is doable.
That's really, really good advice. I mean, definitely like think about the feasibility, the doability of it. Applications, I'll just put the link back up there because now that I actually am sharing my screen this time. Do please apply. The applications will be open until August 11th at 11:59 p.m. on the East Coast time of the US. So as Sophia said, like try not to wait till the last minute, but it's also okay to not necessarily have to apply right away if you're still working on your project. So do like work on it until you feel like it's doable, and then put in an application. If you are having trouble with outlets, like do please keep working on that because that is something that is really important as part of the application. So I wouldn't apply until you have that in hand. But otherwise, best of luck. If you've got questions for us, email us at reacheditorial@pulitzercenter.org, and you should be able to find that email address on one of the links I sent earlier in the chat. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here, and we're looking forward to seeing your proposals. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.